Um, so last week, we sort of delved into the idea that, this world is like a dream, but we didn't quite sort of get into why it could be a dream. We sort of just got an inclination that, look at the world like a dream, right? So the last verse, verse 6 that we did, said that, we continue to be deluded as long as we consider the world to be real, and unless we actually wake up, the world appears real to us. So this week we're going to start digging into how is it actually like a dream, and we're going to get into that. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we can do the 7th verse. Can you all see the screen? Okay. Present. Okay. Can you see the presentation, everyone? All right, cool. So we're doing verse 7. Is there anyone who would like to do the Sanskrit? I don't know if Ushma is here, but if not, I can do it. And then can somebody volunteer to do the English?
Yeah, I can read the English bit.
Okay, perfect.
I can read Sanskrit if you want.
Oh, wow, okay. Go. Was that Niladri?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Tavat satyam jagad bhati shudkid karajatam yatha yavanna gyayate brahma sarvadhishtanam dvayam.
Cool.
The world appears to be real so long as Brahman, the non-dual substratum of the entire creation, is not realized. It is like the illusion of silver in the mother of pearl.
So this verse is continuing from the last verse, which was again talking about the world, and if our belief in the in the reality of it exists, we don't really understand the non-dual nature of it. And here they're giving an example of the illusion of the silver of the mother of pearl. I don't particularly like this example because it's not very relatable in our day-to-day. So I'm going to give you a different example. But before we get to that, when we think of real, I think a lot of us get confused about what does that actually mean. Reality here is not to deny whatever is happening in your world. That's not what is the implication here. It's more about like, what is the world? We consider it as a separate existence apart from us. So that's what the reality there actually means. And we're going to, get much deeper into it, but I don't want you to start to be, this is not going to deny and say that like whatever your world is, it doesn't, exist for you. It absolutely does. But we're going to see it's actually the way we experience it is mostly in our minds. Like, we kind of are thinking about things in the past and we're thinking about things in the future. So the way we currently live our world is unreal, but we want to start living our world in touch with reality. And that's kind of what we're going to explore. So the example here that they gave is, the silver in the mother of pearl. But I don't like that example. But instead, we're going to look at this other example, which is actually in the first page, the cover of the book. I don't know if whoever has a physical copy, but I don't know if you can see this. There is a rope here. So which kind of looks like a snake. So the example that they use is, if you're walking on the street, it's really dark. You can't see very clearly because there's not much light, and suddenly you see this like slithering sort of thing in the distance, and an immediate reaction to seeing something like that is to, project this idea that it could be a snake, right? So just like, oh my God, there's a snake over there. And then, when you actually go closer and you just like stand there for a bit and it doesn't really move, and then you're like, okay, wait a minute, it could be something else. And you go closer, and that's when you actually realize that, oh, it's actually a rope, right? So if you understand and look at this example, what has happened is, in the technical terms in this work, there's two things that have happened. There is something called Avarna Shakti. So this is like two powers. So Avarna Shakti is basically the veiling power of I guess the entire world. It's like the true nature of something is hidden from us. So in this case, the true nature of the fact that it was a rope was hidden from us. And then the second power, which is actually which is worse, is called Vikshepa Shakti, which means it is the literally translates to projecting power. So because of this, misunderstanding or lack of recognizing the real nature, on top of that, we project our own fears, our own ideas about things. So, somebody who's really scared of snakes would project and say, oh my God, that's a snake, right? Somebody who's not scared of snakes would project something else. They may be like, it's actually just like a piece of wood or something, right? They may not be scared, but they would project a different reality onto that thing. So that's kind of how we are living most things in this world. During our day-to-day interactions, we don't see what really is going on. And on top of that, we are projecting different ideas based on our fears and based on our experiences on external things. So that's, just to give you a sense and a taste of what this actually means, that, in this, so in the example of the rope and the snake, the rope was the reality and the snake was the unreality. So on top of the reality of the rope, we have projected our imagination of the snake. So there is an underlying substratum, which is the rope, which is real. Everything else is unreal on top of that. Everything else is imagination. But there was this reality that was the rope. So we want to stick with that reality of a rope and not and understand that everything else is just a projection. So once you realize that it's a rope, immediately the snake disappears from our entire mind. Right? The moment you see that, oh my God, it's just a rope, that all of our fears is completely gone. But until that realization happens, you can say, oh, it's a snake. You can imagine even more. You can start to build a story about the snake. You can say the snake actually came from here. I've seen there's a lot of snakes in this neighborhood. I should be so careful. You can start thinking about, if you get bit, there's no hospitals open right now. It's coronavirus. What am I going to do? You can start imagining all sorts of nonsense, right? Why? Because our fundamental understanding of the fact that it was not a snake is not, we haven't realized that yet. So because of this false understanding, we can go on creating stories and go on believing in the reality of those stories and live our life, not understanding that actually, wait a second, all of that was just imagination and unreal and like a dream. So these are sort of implications of what it actually means for it to be a dream. So we're going to go much deeper into how this happens and what is the sort of psychological process about this. So that was basically what this other example was, which is the silver in the mother of pearl, but I don't like this example, so I'm not going to talk about it. All right, let's do the next verse. Does anyone have any questions about what I said? We're going to get much more deeper and have like different examples as well. But general idea makes sense a little bit? Okay, cool. All right, so verse 8, Niladri. Want to do the Sanskrit?
Yeah, let me do this properly. उपादाने खिलाधारे जागन्ति परमेश्वरे सर्गस्थितिलयान्ति बुद्बुधानि वा वारिणि.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, the English?
Yeah, education worked for me, I guess.
I think you're muted if you're speaking.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize. Yes, I was. Like bubbles in the water, the worlds rise, exist and dissolve in the Supreme Self, which is the material cause and the support of everything.
So one thing about the verses is that they're all poetry. So they actually have a meter. So that's what actually Niladri, he was kind of singing along. So if you actually count the number of syllables, each line has 16. So you kind of split it into two. The first line can be split into two parts, and then the second line can be split into two parts. So you can kind of sing along, and it's pretty cool. A little Sanskrit geeking out there. Okay, so here we are getting a sense of what, how does our experience of this world appear to us? So the example here is, just like, if you're, swimming and you see like, somebody like breathe into the water, you can see like a bubble sort of appear, and then it exists for a while and it rises and it, it reaches the top and then it's gone. Right. So just like that example, most of our ideas and thoughts, they kind of, are like that, right? Like we think of, let's take a practical example. Everybody consciously think of, a mango. It's a mango season coming up in India, right? So if you close your eyes and you think of a mango, you can think about, you're slicing a mango and it's like juicy and like the yellow juices are coming out, and you take a first bite. So you can kind of see the color and you can feel the taste, right, of it. So now when you open your eyes, the mango is gone. There's no mango, but you imagined it and it appeared. So, it appeared like a bubble and you imagined it, you enjoyed the mango while you were thinking about it. It existed for a while. And then when I ask you to open your eyes and look at this book, that mango has disappeared for you. So, so in your awareness of your mind, in that context, these thoughts appear like bubbles. They keep coming, they exist for a while. Our attention is on those thoughts for a while. And then once our attention goes to something else, those thoughts disappear. Right? So it's the material cause for those thoughts. What is it? Did you have to eat a mango to think of a mango? No, right? You just imagined it. So the material cause of the thought in your mind is your mind, right? So there's a sort of this context in which all of these thoughts are appearing. They're existing for a while and then they're disappearing back into nothingness. So it's almost like they come from nothingness. They have their, you enjoy them, you play with them, and then they're gone back into nothingness. So that's from a very subjective nature of your own mind, right? You can say that. But then when you start to think of this whole world, you're like, wait a minute, this outside world isn't quite like that. But actually it kind of is, if you think about it. So anything that you create in this world outside also has the same property. Tomorrow, let's say you have a project, you have a lot of free time, it's the weekend, you want to create your own table, right? You're like, I'm going to make my own table. Right now, there is no table. But you're going to say, I'm going to create it. So now the thought about creating the table has arisen in your mind. And now it's going to stay for a while, right? In order to do anything in the external world, you have to give it some energy. So you're going to have to get some motivation. You're going to be like, I'm going to get the table. I need to get some raw materials. So you're going to take the effort to go to a shop, maybe buy some wood. And now you're going to come back and then you're going to maybe make it yourself. You're going to make it with somebody. So consistently, you have to maintain this thought of, I am going to create a table. And it's going to, you have to maintain it while you're making the table. And once the table is made, the table is there. There you go. You have a table. You're going to use it for a while. And then at some point, either when you move or like, the table is useless or it breaks, the table is destroyed and something else comes out of it. So the table also will exist for a long time. And then at some point, either the table is going to dissolve or deteriorate or decay, or like, you decide to like trash it, right? And something else comes out of it. So the table, the idea of even the table exists, came out of nothingness. It existed for a while. It was a table for a while, and then eventually it became firewood, and it's gone. All right, it just goes back into the earth, and it's gone back into nothingness. So this idea of this nothingness is actually not nothingness. It is this context that we're going to start to look at. It's this deep sense of awareness that we all have, and that deep sense of awareness is the context from which everything appears, exists for a while, and goes back in. And that's why the word here that's used is the material cause. Like, what is the material cause of this mango that you thought about? It is you. If you, let's say now, you, instead of thinking about a mango, can you think of like a massive mountain that you've seen? Now, did you have to, drink some energy shot in order to be able to think about the mountain? Was there any more energy required to do that? No, right? So the cause for all of these thoughts is the same. It's your own mind. And we're going to sort of see how the same sort of relationship exists even for physical objects. Right now, you're thinking of only mental objects. It's very easy to understand how this is true for mental objects, but we're going to see how this is actually true even for physical objects. So I think we can move on to the next verse. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. Cool. So let's do verse 9. All right, Niladri.
Sachidatmanya-nyusyute nitye Vishnu prakalpita vyakyatyo vividha sarva hatake katakadivata.
The entire world of things and beings is only a mental projection upon the substratum, which is the eternal, all-pervading Vishnu, whose nature is existence, consciousness, just as all the different ornaments are made out of the same gold.
Cool. So here we're sort of getting a sense of what our world is. So subjectively, our world is made up of, all of our stuff, our physical objects that we have, the things that we interact with, but also we have a mental world. I forget what the word they use for world here. I guess, no, Nitya is like eternal, but anyway, so the word for world is Jagat in Sanskrit, which is, this entire creation.
Purit Sarva.
Which is, the physical world. Yes, Sarva is like all, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So the word for the entire world and this universe, this physical existence, is Jagat in Sanskrit, and not only represents the physical world, it also represents our mental world, which is our world of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So there's two worlds. There's the physical nature of it, and then there's a mental nature of the world. And in Vedanta, we say that the physical world is a grossified form of the mental world. We learned about the idea of what is gross and subtle. So the same thing sort of applies to thoughts. So some yogic traditions talk about how this entire world is a vibration. It's a vibration of thought. And it starts, and that's the seed for everything. The first seed for anything in this world is a vibration, which is a thought that I want to do this. right? This needs to happen. So think about anything that you've done in your life. It has all started from a thought. It may not have been your thought, but it's a thought. You know, the school that you went to, you're like, I want to go to this school, or I want to get this job, or I want to have, make this thing. Everything has a seed, which is the thought. And how much energy you put into that thought results in the outcome. So which is why some, like if you look at the modern, like neo spiritual people, they talk about intention setting and these sorts of things. But what is it basically doing? It's basically telling you that thoughts, having single pointed mind and single pointed focus on certain thoughts will result in you doing things well. Because right now our energies are being dissipated because we want to do 10 different things. And there's contradictory sort of thoughts that we have. I want to, go, get fit, but then you have a contradictory thought that I actually also want to eat ice cream, right? So there are these like two opposing thoughts, and because of those energies we focus on both those thoughts, it gets dissipated. But if you have a single unwavering attention on one thought and you keep working at it, that eventually is going to, come true. So we're going to see that this entire world is nothing but a thought. One is a little bit more gross than the other. So here we are sort of alluded to this nature of existence, and the word here is Sat-Chit, which means Sat is existence or truth, and Chit is like the word that we use for consciousness, and you'll see this a lot in like the entire yogic culture, which is Sat-Chit Ananda is sort of the word that's used to describe the nature of who you are. So Sat here means existence. So why do we say existence? Because so if you take, without trying to imagine something directly, do you ever doubt your existence? Do you exist? If you don't exist, right? Like you would never say that, because you always exist. You never doubt that you exist. You may doubt who you are. You may doubt, like why you may question why you're feeling certain way, but you never question that you're not. That is never a doubt. You never question and you wake up and say, am I me or am I somebody else? Unless you're watching like Westworld or something. But otherwise you're always sure about the fact that you are, right? So that's why they say that the nature of you is existence. You always exist, but you may think that you're a strong person, you may think you're a weak person. So that is qualities about your existence, but you never doubt about that you exist. And then the second piece is consciousness, which translates to like being aware of things, and you're always aware, right? It's through you that you're aware of things. You never doubt that you are no longer aware of things. You're become like a rock. You're always a conscious being. You can feel, you can think, but you don't. Sometimes we don't like what you think or we don't like what you feel. But the property and the quality that you are a sentient being and you're a conscious being is always true, right? So it's from you that you are able to see happiness go by, or see a sadness go by, or see fear go by. So you are sort of this, it's because of you that you're aware of all those things in your experience. So that's sort of the first two things that are described as the nature of who you actually are. On top of this nature, we do this sort of projection, which I alluded in the previous verse, which was, there's a projecting power, the Vikshepa Shakti. And because of this projecting power, on this nature that I am aware, I project that I am a happy person, I am miserable right now, I am excited right now, I'm low energy right now. All of these projections are on the stuff. And we say, I am the stuff, rather than saying I am aware of the stuff, or stuff goes by and I look at it, you identify with it, and that is the that is the ignorance, because our identification to something makes us suffer. So we're going to try to see, can we identify with something else? Or rather, that's actually a wrong understanding of who we are. We're going to start to see that we're actually not the things that we're seeing. We are actually that which sees. So, the thing that sees, the nature of that is existence and consciousness. And there's actually a third one, which is bliss, which is what everybody wants. I want to be blissful. And we're going to see, we're not introducing that yet, because right now, I don't feel very blissful right now. But we're going to see how you can taste that. So here they say that, the example that they use is that this entire world is kind of like different ornaments made out of the same material. So the material here they talk about is gold. So, when you go to like a jeweler and you look at like stuff that's there in their shop, you may notice that they have a necklace, they have like bangles, they have earrings, all these different, things that are all made of gold, right? So now you may look at them and you can be like, wow, look at this necklace, look at this beautiful ring, look at this earring. They're all different things. But actually, if you look at it from a purely physical standpoint, it's just gold, right? We have just given names to different shapes for convenience. But actually, it's all gold, right? So the material cause of all of that is gold. And because of language and because of convenience, we give and we invent names. So we can distinguish between different things, and it's easy to communicate, and you can exchange ideas or whatever. But in reality, it is nothing but gold. The cause for all of those objects is nothing but gold. So if you go to a blacksmith or something, or a gold person who melts gold, they don't care about the fact that it's a bangle or whether it's like a ring. To them, it's like it's gold. If it's not gold, get GTFO, right? Give me gold. So to them, they are looking at only gold. So that's sort of what we're going to see, that the material cause of all of our experiences is all you. And the word that we use is Brahman to describe the material cause. Again, language can only point. It cannot give you the entire thing, right? Language is very limiting. So, which is why Sanskrit is very dense, and it tries to limit the number of words that you use so that people don't they don't misunderstand. So you want to be very precise about how you want to describe this and what are the tools you want to use. So things like God, words like God are used, and God is such a overloaded term that if you say that this entire world is God, people have a lot of ideas about what that means to them. Everybody has a different understanding. And that's what the projections that you do, just like the rope and the snake. So now I've given you a word God, and now there's a huge amount of trouble that you can get into, which is now you're going to start projecting, oh, when you say God, does it mean this actual external being who's like creating all of this? So and depending on different cultures, you will have different experiences that may describe this. So which is why we don't want to use words like that. And actually most Upanishads describe it as that. They don't even say what it is. They will just give you a pronoun, like it is that. You are that is a very common, what is, the word is like Mahavakya. It's like the great utterances. Tat Tvam Asi is one of them. And it translates to you are that. So you are that thing. And we don't want to give you another word, because the moment we give you word, then you will start projecting and imagining things. So you are that is enough. And we're going to start to see, can you have a direct experience of that? Let's see if I got all parts of this verse. Let's read it again. Let's see if this makes a little bit more sense. The English.
The entire world of things and beings is only a mental projection upon the substratum, which is the eternal, all-pervading Vishnu, whose nature is existence, consciousness, just as all the different ornaments are made out of the same gold.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I didn't speak a little bit about what the mental projections are. So to kind of confirm the idea of projecting the snake on the rope, we want to look at this entire world as our projections. So maybe this is a good time to talk about something called a sanskara, which is an impression in everyone's mind. So all of us have been, on this planet for X number of years, and over those years we have gathered a bunch of impressions. If you look at this book, you wouldn't know that this is a book unless you were told, and you were, the idea that this is a book has been given to you, and you have repeated it over and over again. So every time you look at something like this, an idea comes in your head saying, oh, this is a book. But to somebody who has never seen a book, they may not even know the word for book, right? Somebody who's lived in like a room or something for their whole life. And culturally, different things mean different things in different societies. So, one of the examples that my teacher really gives that stuck with me is, the idea of wood. To somebody in Western society, you look at a table and you'll be like, wow, that's a beautiful table. You can keep stuff on it. But like from somebody from like an Aboriginal culture, look at that and be like, oh, fuel, right? They wouldn't even consider that as something you use to put stuff on. So culturally and based on your ideas, you can look at something and interpret it in very different ways, which is why, there's hundreds of, and different ways of religion, different ways of like music. There's like so many things, right? Like everything, there's so much diversity in the world because of this amazing beauty that you can have your own interpretation of something. Now, so that's the, so that's like a samskara. So that's a mental impression. So when they say here that, the world of things and beings is a mental projection, is that whenever you encounter anything, what's happening is a recollection of these samskaras is happening. So when you look at a tree, you don't just look at the tree, you try to think of like, oh, is this a gulmohar tree or is this like some other tree? And where have you learned those ideas? It's come from the past. So you're constantly projecting, and you're thinking about what this world is. You're constantly trying to understand this world, right? And the way we understand this world is by recollecting from our past what it is, or trying to find a model to fit this world into. And that is the projection, which is, we are taking some mental idea and we are superimposing it on whatever we are seeing. And there's nothing wrong with it, but that's the way we live our world. And we're trying to analyze it and see, is that actually absolutely true, right? And we're going to see that most things are just opinions. Like, I think this is how it is, but what ends up happening is we make them beliefs, and we think that this is the only reality. The way I look at, the way my world should be, that is the only way it should be. If it's any other way, I suffer. So we're going to start to see how this world is just a set of projections, and if we start to see that, then our sort of sense of identity and belief in those projections will start to dissipate. And we're going to start to see, can we just live from a place of just freedom, where like things don't stick as much? They appear and I see them, I enjoy them, but they just pass by. So you become like this, very wavy, so it becomes a very wavy and beautiful sort of existence and experience. Okay, I think the next verse is going to give us a better understanding as well, and we're going to get deeper into it. So let's go to the verse 10. I think there were a bunch of questions in the chat, but I can't for some reason see the chat when I project the screen. So please, can somebody like look at the chat and tell me what's going on? Can you not see the chat? I guess you guys can't.
I don't see any questions there. Only one question says samsara. I don't know. maybe the person who made it want to ask about that.
Puneet,
But,
unless the questions went directly to you,
I see.
not much else in the chat.
How do I see the stupid video? Okay, maybe I'm going to stop screen share for a second. All right, cool. I see them now. Oh, okay. There was a question about, I was thinking the same thing. Is that a question or observation? Okay, observation. Cool. So Jayesh, what did you mean by samsara?
You were asking if someone knows the word for the world.
Oh,
so
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the distinction between Vishnu in verse 9 and Brahman in verse 7?
Yeah, I mean, they are just different words. I think, you know, in India, there is this, everybody has opinions and everybody wants to come up with their own name for things. And Vishnu is sort of so there's three presiding like principles in Hindu culture, which is the creative aspect, the aspect of existence, and then the aspect of death. There's birth, you know, you live for a while, and then there's death, right? And that's the nature of this entire world, that it, you know, it's born, it exists, and while. And the names that we give for those three dimensions are, you know, for birth, it's Brahma, the god, and for existence, it's Vishnu, and for death, it's Shiva. So there's three gods. And you know, which is why it's interesting. You never see temples in India for Brahma, which is the creative god, right? You mostly see temples in India for Vishnu and Shiva. And it's very funny because nobody has problems in creating stuff, right? The problems only appear when you want to maintain them, which is like, I want to start a business, but how do I make it succeed? How do I make sure it doesn't like collapse, right? So that's when you propitiate the Vishnu god. And then, you know, when you have some problems and you're just like, man, I want to get rid of my suffering, I want to get rid of this, I want to get rid of that, that's when you propitiate Shiva. Nobody ever, you know, prays to Brahma, which is hilarious because we all have this creative potential in us. It's very easy to create things. Ideas are very easy to create, but, you know, sustaining them, which is Vishnu, and destroying them, which is Shiva, those are the hard parts. So here, Vishnu here is sort of indicating that, you know, things exist, our sense of existence, they're all powered by Vishnu. And they're all like energy which has to be maintained in order for things to exist. Otherwise, all of them tend to naturally, you know, dissipate and then, you know, they die. But if you seriously want to build something and maintain something, a lot of energy has to be sustained, right? For any project, if you think about it. So that's sort of the implication here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Okay, let's do verse 10. Niladri, do you want to do that? Oh, am I not sharing the screen? My bad.
Could you share your screen, please? यथाकाशो ऋषिकेशो नानोपाधिगतो विभुः तद्भेदाद्भिन्नवद्भाति तन्नाशे केवलो भवेत्.
In the English.
The all-pervading space appears to be diverse on account of its association with various conditionings, upadhis, which are different from each other. However, upon the destruction of these limiting adjuncts, the space becomes one. So also, the omnipresent truth appears to be diverse on account of its association with various upadhis, and becomes one on the destruction of these upadhis.
Cool. So this is continuing on the previous idea that, our experience of this world appears diverse because of our conditionings, and our I give the word samskaras, but there's also another word which is upadhis, which I think translates to like equipment. So your equipment or your mind has these samskaras, and based on the samskaras that you have, your equipment is going to be very different. Based on your experiences, you'll have a mind. If you have studied a lot, you'll have a mind of like a very analytical nature. If you're an artist, you'll have a mind of a very sort of poetic nature. So just based on like your conditionings and your previous experiences, and those experiences determine how you experience this world, right? And it appears very diverse. So I can look at a movie and say, oh my God, it was such a beautiful movie, it moved me so much. But another person can look at the same movie and say it was the worst movie ever, I didn't enjoy it at all. So the same sort of experience had different internal experiences for people, and that's based on these limiting conditionings. And so more like example about like so something that is common within these two, let's say I'm watching a movie and you're watching a movie, we're both watching the same movie. So the way we are experiencing it is exactly the same, which is, I am here and I'm witnessing and things are going by, right? The movie is going by. But on top of this movie, I will now project my own experiences, which is, I look at some character in the movie and I'll be like, oh, this character reminds me of this person I hated in school or whatever, right? So like those projections are happening, and then you are projecting your own sets of experiences on that movie. Now, but the way we are experiencing it is the same. So that's what he talks about in the book, which is, the space becomes, okay, so we'll talk about how it becomes one, but there's something common there, which is the way we are experiencing the movie is the same, but what we are seeing is different, which is, I am seeing my conditionings, you are seeing your conditionings, and you're interpreting them. But the way that, it's kind of like we are in the same theater watching the movie, but we are on top of the movie, we are also adding a bunch of other things. But we are both sitting in the same theater, enjoying the same air, breathing and seeing, so that experience is the same. But there's something which is very different, which is our projections, right? So what they're saying is, if we destroy these ideas, if we stop projecting stuff, let's say for, you go through this some experience which allows you to get to a place where whenever you watch something, you never bring your baggage of past along with it. You just watch it for what it is. Let's say that was possible. And let's say somebody else could do the exact same thing. Then the way you both would experience the movie would be exactly the same, because you're not bringing any baggage and old sort of ideas about anything that you're observing. So that's what they mean by, when those limiting adjuncts, when these things are destroyed, then the space becomes one. One example that my teacher gives, which is also really cool, is like, you have a cup, and now within this cup, there is space in it, right? So there's cup space, and then outside there's, room space. And now I'm moving all of this, moving my cup around, and it appears that the cup space is moving. But actually, there is no cup space, right? It's just one space. It's just that the cup is in space, and it just appears that there's cup space now. And let's say I destroy my cup. You can look at it and be like, oh, the cup space merged into the room space, right? That could be, language could describe it in that way. I could say, yes, the cup space has now completely merged into the room space. But that's actually not what's happened, right? It was always the same space. It just appeared because of this physical limitation of the cup. that that it was separate from this room space. So now if you have this cup and this bottle, there's a bottle space and there's a cup space. And we may think that this bottle space is very different than this cup space. And when the bottle dies or whatever, and when the cup dies and it breaks, these spaces are merging into the infinite space that is. But that's actually not what's happening. It was always part of it. It's just that language and the way we see it and our misunderstandings we don't see that straight away. So we're going to see that when we destroy our limiting faculties and our limiting the experiences, then we stop projecting. And once we stop projecting, you will see the truth in its glory. So let's try to read the verse again.
The all-pervading space appears to be diverse on account of its association with various conditionings, upadhis, which are different from each other. However, upon the destruction of these limiting adjuncts, the space becomes one. So also, the omnipresent truth appears to be diverse on account of its association with various upadhis and becomes one on the destruction of these upadhis.
Cool. I think we covered all of this verse. So let's do the next verse, and we're going to continue along the same idea. All right, Niladri. You're muted.
नानोपाधिवशादेव जातिवर्णाश्रमादयः आत्मन्यारोपितास्तो ये रसवर्णादिभेदवत्.
And the English?
Because of its association with different conditionings, upadhis, the idea of caste, color, position, and so on are superimposed upon the Atman, just as flavor, color, and so on are superimposed on water.
Cool. So we are introduced to this word Atman. I'm not sure if did we experience it before? Maybe not. Okay, so Atman is sort of the word we use for the self, and we use that as the subjective self. So, I have an Atman, you have an Atman, everybody else has an Atman. So you're not special. Everybody has Atman. And so that's the word we use to describe a personal sense of self. And Brahman is the word we use to describe the sort of the macroscopic level of the self, which is the entire world. Let's not worry about Brahman, but so the Atman is the feel, remember when I said that there's something that is seeing stuff. There's something that, perceives this world. There's something that exists, and the feeling that you exist, that's a direct experience that you're constantly experiencing. So that direct experience of the self, so like who looks at this cup, for example, like I'm looking at this cup. So that direct experience, the experiencer, so not even so much as the experiencer, because the idea of an experiencer is actually a thought saying, oh, I am experiencing, but just the feeling that yes, I exist, I'm conscious of things. So that feeling, that the name for that is is given the Atman. And on that direct experience, we tend to superimpose a bunch of things. And we tend to superimpose what? Stuff that we are experiencing. So, technically we are experiencing our body constantly, just that in this, there's never in the body, right? But let's say you go to sleep, then your body kind of disappears and then you have a different body. But in the waking state, you always have this body. And on this sort of direct experience of yourself, which is, just experiencing things, we see, oh yeah, there is a body, It's feeling pretty energetic right now, or it's feeling not energetic right now. And then we superimpose that I am feeling energetic just because the body is feeling energetic, right? It's the body feeling energetic, or the body is feeling sad, or the body is feeling happy. All of those things are qualities of the body. But what we are doing is qualities of the body and the mind on this, of all the qualities of the stuff perceiving, the human or I is. So how crazy is that? You have a car and the car gets into an accident and gets completely totaled, and now you're crying that I have been destroyed, right? Somebody, let's say you start to do that and you feel terrible. Yeah. But that's not true, right? You still exist. Like nothing has really happened to you. You are totally fine. But the car has, or something which is external to you has, let's say, been destroyed. But we tend to associate our identity to that and say, I have somehow suffered and I have been damaged. But in reality, you haven't been touched. You are happily in your house, sitting and watching this, and you just heard that, oh, something has happened outside. And you feel somehow you have been destroyed. So what we're trying to get our attention to is that the sense of existence and consciousness that you are never changes. It's constant. You're constantly eyeing, as my teacher says, you're constantly eyeing. What you're experiencing is different based on, the situations and how the world is. But you are always there, experiencing it unchanged. And based on your conditionings, you may think of, in this case, what caste you are, if you're Indian or whatever, or what color you are, what's your status in society, how much money you have, how many friends you have. These are all qualities, no doubt, but they are not qualities of you. They are qualities of stuff. And we tend to superimpose those qualities and say, I am, very rich. I am very poor. I am very successful. I am very, unsuccessful. But in fact, you have no quality of your quality is just existence. I am just existing and experiencing, and whatever comes in my experiences are based on my the actions that I've done in the past and my conditionings. So that's what we are seeing. So the example that they use here is just like, you can add stuff to water and it becomes a completely different liquid, right? Like, so you have all kinds of sodas with different flavors, but in the end, they're just water with a bunch of flavor, with a bunch of like conditionings. So once you remove those conditionings, what you're left with is actually just water. So water can appear in different ways as different things. So the water can appear as a river. Water can appear as a lake. Water can appear as the sea. Water can appear as the ocean. They're all different things that they appear that they're different, but actually in the end, it's just water. So on the quality of, on the material of water, you're superimposing, that it's a river, that it's a lake, and those are actually not the reality. They are convenient words that we use to describe things, but that's not the reality. The reality is that it's just water. So we're going to see, we're going to get a little bit technical now. So so this is where, the Vedanta kind of starts to describe our complete world of our inner experiences. So let's go to the next verse. Or does anyone have questions about this?
Hi, Puneet. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Hi, Pran.
Hi. And maybe this is something that we'll be discussing on in a bigger picture sort of way, and maybe down the road a little bit. But in the previous verse, we talked about the destruction of the upadhis to, result in oneness and perception of oneness. So
yes,
how do we go about that, or is that something we'll discuss later?
We will discuss later. So we're going to talk about, so I haven't spoken about this yet, but there's samskaras. But on, like, there's a subset of those samskaras, which are impressions, which are called vasanas. Maybe I can talk about it now. So vasanas are specifically certain kinds of impressions that we have, which are driven and have an egotistical nature to it. So how does my teacher describe it? They are a subset of impressions which, yeah, say that again? Yeah, okay, so Sandhya is going to say it. Why don't you say it?
Vasanas are a set of impressions left upon the unconscious due to a previously performed egoistical action.
All right, perfect. So what does that mean? So let's take an example of I love eating ice cream. Okay, so that's an action that I have taken, which is I like ice cream. Eating ice cream is the action I have taken. So now when I'm eating the ice cream, it tastes really good. But I have, during the experience of eating the ice cream, I have projected onto the ice cream joy-giving properties. So I have now, in my mind, I have associated ice cream to good, So, whenever I'm feeling shitty, I may think of what is it that makes me good? I will scan my past experiences and I'll be like, aha, ice cream will pop up. Why? Because when I was experiencing the ice cream, I marked it in my mind as this is amazing. So I have no doubt it was amazing while you were experiencing it, but you have subconsciously marked it and tagged it as this is joy producing. So in the future, you have now given a lot of energy to this object in your experience, ice cream. So now in the future, you are just running along, walking fine. Suddenly, you are trying to sit and meditate or whatever, and now a thought will come, ice cream, out of nowhere. Why? Because when you experienced ice cream in the past, you had enjoyed it so much and egoistically enjoyed it that now, out of nowhere, things will start to appear about ice cream, all the different flavors. So because this is a very deep impression, and those are the kinds of impressions that our mind is constantly thinking about and trying to fulfill. So ice cream is a very trivial example, but let's say money is a big thing, right? Or let's say relationships are a big thing, and so Arpan, what was your question again? I don't know why I started talking about this.
No problem. I was just asking, and like I said, it seems like this will be the subject of future discussion, but I was just wondering, all right, how we go about destroying this upadhi to reach that oneness that was described in the previous verse.
So what we are going to destroy we are going to destroy these conditions, these kinds of impressions, which are basically beliefs in certain experiences that we have had in the past. So there's nothing. So when you look at, let's say I don't know, what's a good example? Let's say you look at your ex-partner, right? A lot of thoughts and feelings come up when you look at your ex-partner. Why? Because while you were experiencing and you were in a relationship, some experiences occurred, and you projected onto those experiences joy-giving properties, and the opposite, which is misery-producing properties. So ice cream was the example of it giving you joy, but there are certain experiences when they happen, you think, oh no, that's a misery-producing experience. I do not want those experiences to happen. So you'll do everything to make sure that that experience never happens again in your life. So it's the same sort of a relationship, but in a negative way. So now let's say you're experiencing you had like a terrible relationship or whatever, and you've had this person, you see this person in a distance. Now suddenly your mind is going to throw up a bunch of thoughts, because now in the past you had given this person and these experiences joy producing and misery producing properties. And because of those experiences, your present experience, you're projecting on this person again those same properties. Even though that person may have completely changed and transformed, you have no idea. But your past has now sort of come back, and you're reliving the past and you're projecting that again onto this person. Without knowing, they may have been the exact same person, you don't know. But from your standpoint, you're living in the past again. So the question, what you were alluding to, is that, how we are going to break down those beliefs, because those are the only beliefs that get in the way. There's nothing wrong in having, impressions, because without impressions, you would be like a dumb, like really idiotic person in the world, right? You wouldn't be able to interact. You wouldn't be able to tell a door from a wall, right? You need to have impressions. But if a person can produce such deep emotions in you, then there's something to look at. It's like, what is it about this that I have not processed? What is it about this that I am still holding on to? And those holding on to are just a bunch of ideas that we are still sort of not really shed light on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you some tools to dissolve the glue that keeps you, tied to this idea. We're not going to take each and every idea and try to process it, because that is infinite. What we're going to give you is we're going to give you a tool to dissolve the glue so that the ideas just fall. So if you get rid of the glue, that's all you need to do. You don't need to look at every single thing and say, have I gotten fixed of this? Have I gotten this? Because that's like, infinite. You don't know how many experiences you're still holding on to. But if you can give you the tool of just dissolving the glue that keeps things stuck to your body, then you just use the glue. No matter what's going on, you're just like, all right, I guess I'm still holding on to this. Apply the glue dissolver, and those things are automatically going to fall away. So that's what we're going to do, Arpan, and that's the process.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So a lot of these things that you spoke about, like liking ice cream or having such feelings about your ex-partner or whatever, they're kind of physiological responses in your brain, right? So is it more about detaching yourself from these physiological responses, or is it about the next time you have a similar experience? For example, I had butterscotch last time, doesn't mean that I find butterscotch today and I'm going to still have the diarrhea that I had last time. That shouldn't stop me from having butterscotch today because it's a different day and it's a different ice cream or something.
Yeah. So if I understand what you're asking is, there's no you don't want to deny stuff. So are you asking from a standpoint where you'll have to stop enjoying things and you'll have to stop doing things because they're going to give you either happiness or pleasure? Is that sort of the implication of this question?
No, it's not. I guess it's, are you trying to remove the attachment of what you felt the last time you had an experience and have that have implications on your current experience of the same thing? Or is it just that no matter what experience you're having, you should not have these feelings?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we will eventually get to it, but let's give you a sneak peek about this. So there is this principle called the pleasure principle that we're going to learn about. I don't think it's described in this book. It's something that my teacher told me, and it's a very interesting way to explain how we experience pleasure and suffering in this world. So pleasure principle basically means that there's a desire that first occurs, that I want X. Where does those desires come? Where does that desire come from? It comes from vasana, which we just learned is a previously performed egoistic action. So because of my previously performed action, now I have a desire that I want to do X. A lot of energy is spent trying to get X done. So let's take a trivial example. I want to eat pizza. So you will call the pizza thing, you'll make some effort, you'll make your order, you're like, all right, done. Like, now you're waiting. So now you're waiting. And finally the pizza, it's been half hour, the pizza comes to your door, and then you pay the pizza, whatever. And then you open the pizza, you take the first bite, and you're just like, oh, this is like bliss. I have reached heaven, right? The first bite is always the best bite. So now we will try to understand what has happened in this experience. So desire came, energy spent getting X desire, and then desire was successful, which was the object of desire has become mine. So like now I have it, I have acquired it. And now when you are experiencing the object, for a moment, your mind has gotten rid of all the desires in this world that you have had. And your attention is completely on the object. Okay? So while your attention is completely on the object, your entire world has actually disappeared. So in this case, you're eating pizza. Pizza is the only thing in your mind right now. Your family, your friends, your monetary problems, your relationship problems, they're all disappeared. And you're only enjoying the pizza, right? And what we tend to end up doing is, oh, it's the pizza which was so joyful. No, I mean, not to deny that there were some sensual experiences associated with the pizza, but what has the pizza done? The pizza has put you in a state of mind which is free from desire. So if you next time eat pizza, just notice your mind when you take that first bite. Your mind is going to be absolutely focused on, there'll be kind of blank in the sense you're only engaged in the thing that's in front of you, which is eating pizza. You're not thinking about your work. You're not thinking about your partner. You're not thinking about your crazy boss or whatever. You're not thinking about any of those things. You're only focused on the pizza. So in our ignorance, what we end up doing is we attribute to the pizza joy-producing properties, as opposed to seeing what is really going on. The pizza put your mind in a place where it was free of desire. So, and the bliss of the self, the bliss of the Atman was shining through. So you only experienced the bliss of your own self when you ate the pizza. The pizza did not give you any joy, really. You know, if it's a pepperoni pizza, some people will hate it. Nobody, like not a lot of people like, so clearly pepperoni pizza does not have joy producing properties, right? So joy producing property is only within you. And you use objects in this world to make your mind ready and able to experience your own joy. That's all is happening in this world. And you can get as complex as, like, you know, trying to solve some, you know, great social problems. You can get as gross as simple as, like, you know, hugging a person, right? So all of those things, diverse in their appearances, right? Like singing on stage, or like writing a book, watching a movie. All these are different. They appear to be different experiences on a physical level, on an emotional level, but they all have the same property, which is what they do to the mind. For a moment, the mind stops its craving, stops its desiring, and it just focuses on the now. And once the experience is over, so depending on how difficult it is to acquire the object. So pizza is very easy to acquire. You can just order a pizza, right? So the joy lasts for 5 minutes. But something more complex, something more difficult to acquire, something like, you know, getting that job that you really wanted, that probably lasts, the joy of that lasts much longer. An idea, so, you know, trying to fight for, hunger, like going and doing social services, that's a never-ending thing. So that joy could last much longer. But what is it doing in the end to your mind is the same. So you're trying to understand the mechanics of it. The mechanics of every action, and when you acquire the object of desire, does the exact same thing to your mind. So, you know, my teacher says, like, what do you mean? Like creating, eating a ice cream and like having sex and like doing, you know, watching a movie is all the same? Yes, it is. What it does to your mind is exactly the same. Essentially, it may be different based on, you know, what senses you're using. But to the mind, it does the exact same thing. So we're going to start to see what is going on, Niladri, because that's the problem. Once you start to see that when I enjoy the things in this world, I'm actually just enjoying myself. The world is like the world. Then you will start to really enjoy, because you will see what is going on. You will not give it's not the ice cream that you're really enjoying. You're enjoying yourself. And wherever you go, there you are. So once you start to see that you are enjoying your own self and not the objects in this world, then the objects start mattering less. Doesn't matter what is around you. If you can enjoy yourself, and if you can see that's actually what is happening. Everybody is enjoying themselves in reality. It's just that we superimpose joy giving. And so again, the same idea of superimposition comes in. We superimpose joy giving and misery producing properties on the external objects, whereas those external objects have no joy giving or misery producing properties. It's because of our conditionings and because of our experiences that we project and superimpose those properties on the objects. But if we can clearly see that that's not what's going on, we can start to break that cycle. So that's the process of starting to break that cycle. So whenever you're enjoying stuff, start to notice, how does your mind feel? Whenever you're suffering, start to notice how your mind feels. When you're suffering, your mind is full of thoughts and desires. When you're absolutely free and joyful, your mind is absolutely, it's very thin. Like you feel very light. It's a physical experience too. So when your mind is very noisy, you feel constricted and tight. And that's also a physiological response. So you're going to just start to notice that a lot more. And so when we do the subject-object discrimination meditation, that's also the process, which is, oh, noisy mind is appearing in my awareness. I am the subject. The noisy mind is the object. I am not the noisy mind. So that gives you a little gap to stop, jumping into the water and swimming, and just like allows you to perceive it a little bit, and automatically it fades away. So that's the process we're going to take. All right, so it's we have 17 more minutes, so I want to do a meditation before we end. Dang it, I wanted to do 10 verses today. Only got to 7. All right, I don't know how many we did. All right, it is what it is. Cool. Any final thoughts or questions before we do the meditation? Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. All right, so let's start by closing our eyes. And if you're able to sit, just notice if your back and neck is aligned and feels a little straight. You're not slouching. If you're slouching, maybe just rock a little forward so that your head feels nicely rested and balanced. And start by taking a deep breath, conscious, long, deep breath. Just notice how it feels to breathe in. Just breathe in air and oxygen, realizing that you are a conscious and alive being. You can be conscious of your breath as well. So much of it happens unconsciously, but just consciously breathing and focusing on our breath feels pretty good. So let's take another long breath. And on the exhale, just relax. Let go of any physical tension that you may be holding, any thoughts that you may be holding on to. Just put them on the shelf, let them go. Maybe you can start gently by scanning your body by starting from the top of your head, just slowly going down and examining different parts of your head, your nose, back of your head, lips, just seeing if there's any sensation or tension that you're hanging on to. Also pay attention to the breath while you're doing that. And if you feel any like stretch or strain on the exhale, just like release that stress. Keep moving your attention down to the body until you get to the soles of your feet. So this practice is another practice of practicing the Sakshi Bhav, which is the attitude of a witness. We want to just notice and recognize that we are always the witness to everything that's going on. We are a witness to our body. We are a witness to our breath. We are a witness to our emotional nature, our physical nature. And we witness to our thoughts even. And we have the complete power to pay attention to thoughts or to come out of those thoughts and not pay attention. So it's the nature of the mind to think about these powerful vasanas that we just learned about. They could be things that we love or things that we hate. But that's the power. And we continue to give these thoughts power by engaging in them. So what we're going to learn is to just sit back and just observe these thoughts going by. And just that act of observing and not engaging in the thought significantly reduces the power of those thoughts, so that the next time they occur, they will occur with a certain lesser amount of intensity. And we have to keep practicing this until you will soon see that the thought that you so considered powerful a month or 2 months ago does not affect you at all. And that is an experience that you will experience if you continue down this work. So we want to keep noticing and recognizing that we are a subject. It's not that we become a subject. We just notice that we always are. And everything that we look at, our experiences, our thoughts, memories, they all occur in this awareness, in the space of awareness. And we can choose to engage with them or not. And when you're meditating in this time, we're not going to think about solving any problems. We're going to use this time just to keep recognizing that we are the subject. So if you know, our sort of natural tendency is to engage with those thoughts. But we're going to keep reminding ourselves to sit back and watch the movie of our own thoughts. They may be very appealing, but we're still going to sit back and not give any more energy to the thought. Whenever you notice that you're engaged in the thought, nothing to feel bad about. Just immediately recognize that the thought is an object in my awareness and get back into noticing that you're the subject, you're the witness. You want to keep doing this. It's known as Drik Drishya Vivek, which is subject-object discrimination. You want to just hold these thoughts in the space of our awareness and just watch without trying to deny any thought, without trying to encourage any other thought. Just whatever comes up, just lying down, this grass, just watching these clouds go by without engaging, without adding new clouds, just watching. While you're watching, you may also start to notice the nature of these thoughts, that they come out of nothingness, they exist for a while, and then they go away, like bubbles in water. There's nothing special about any thought. So don't try to prevent or suppress any thought. They just have the same property, same characteristics. Just one feels more charged than the other because of our repeated thinking. And so we just want to sit back and just notice these thoughts. If the same thought is appearing over and over again, that's fine too. But we just want to notice them. I promise you that the energy of these thoughts are going to fade. If your mind gets distracted by sounds outside, just bring your attention back and recognize that you're the subject, you're the witness. We put your attention on something physical like the breath. You can try to notice the breath and notice the thoughts at the same time. That works too. If your mind is starting to drift, recognize that it's drifting and bring your attention back. You're coming back and sitting on the grass again, watching the clouds. So slowly bring your attention back to the objective awareness. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And before we end this class, I wanted to do a chant like we do. This time, I'm going to do a new one. So this chant is also written by the Adi Shankara, who wrote this book. And it's from this beautiful hymn called the Nirvana Shatakam. It's the first verse. And I believe the story is that when he met his teacher, who was deep in meditation, I believe, and he was unwilling to take any students at the time, he sang this verse to convince him. And that's how he convinced him to become his student. So cool. So let's try singing this. So the way, for folks who haven't done this, I'm going to sing the first line, and then you can understand the tune a little bit, and then we will repeat the first line again together, and then I can sing the second line, and then you can join me in the second line. Or you can just watch, and if you don't want to sing, it's fine too. All right. Mano buddhya hankara. Oh, am I not sharing the screen? I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the chant. Mano buddhya hankara ceta ninaham. Mano buddhya hankara ceta ninaham. Na chashrotra jive na chakrana netre na chashrotra jive na chakrana netre na cha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu na cha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham, Shivoham. So this is what it translates to. And I would highly encourage you all to check out this entire hymn, because it's the entire teaching of the Advaita Vedanta. And this is kind of relevant to us because this is what we're trying to get at. I'll share this verse in the group chat as well. But basically, it says that I am none of whatever I perceive. I am that which perceives. So I am the eternal self. So thank you all. This is the end of the class. But one thing I did want to say is that please meditate in your, the class is not beneficial if you don't do your own practices and your own self-study and your own meditation. You're going to get only that which you put in. So please, these ideas will not assimilate and stick with you if you don't make them your own. So only by your own practice and by your own meditations and your own understanding will this make sense. Otherwise it would just, just like anything else, it will just pass by like a cloud. So please meditate, even if you're doing 10 minutes a day, that's absolutely fine. Even 5 minutes is great, but just make it a practice to just set some time every day, just like you're brushing your teeth. I hope you all brush your teeth, but just doing that, and and that builds a habit. And habits are always hard to build, and given how much free time we have these days, it's much easier to build habits. So please do that, and and please read the commentary and the verses. Just take a couple of verses every time you meditate. Before you meditate, just read 2 of them and then meditate. So then you will have some sort of something to think about if you want to think about something, and those ideas will make more sense in your meditation, because when your mind is a little quieter, that's when you experience these ideas, and they become a direct experience and a reality for you. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Niladri, for reading, and Jayesh for reading the English. I'm going to stick around, for any questions or anything, but that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Puneet.